Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Just as a reminder before we get started, make sure a lot of you are doing a great job. Make sure you have your first, last name, institution, what district you're in, and if you're certified or part of membership there, that will help us out when we sort out attendance later. So if everyone can do that, it'd be great. We'll get started here in a few minutes. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Thanks to everyone for tuning in today. Going over budgeting 101. Appreciate everyone jumping on. As a reminder, just kind of set it, but for those of you joining in right now, please make sure to help with attendance, tracking, and all that good stuff. Make sure you have first, last name on here, along with your institution, what district you're in, and if you are a certified or a member, that will help us out. To go ahead and get started today, just a few things from Uncommon Sports Group. Those of you that have always wanted to join a book study of ours, we are starting a new one in spring. It'll start January 23rd. You'll see that posted on social media. I'm excited to do that. We're going to do a book written by Case Keenum, so we're really excited to do that. Our Clean Out for a Cause program is going great. We've done a great job of, in fact, just this past weekend, we were able to outfit a couple homeless communities with some socks that were donated, and then some schools with some bags and backpacks, which were great to see. So please, if you have anything, especially as your fall seasons are wrapping up, need to make room or have gear that's used that you need to find a home for, please reach out. Be glad to provide boxes, labels, all that good stuff. The upcoming football student manager appreciation week had been rescheduled, just with some other stuff that was going on for the week of November 6th. So see our social media for that. We'll be looking to do some meals for your student managers, things like that. Will be going on that week, so be on the lookout. And we have an academy group coming up in January. So you have young student managers or folks that want to be in this profession, sports management, professional and college sports long term. We'd love to come alongside them. And then we also have our scholarship program. We give away $30,000 a year in scholarships. So if you have students looking for scholarships, please take a look at that. And it is on our homepage at uncommonsg.org. So take a look at that. CEUs, please make sure, again, I'll say this over and over again, but it really helps out for everybody involved. Make sure you got your first, last name, school organization, your district certified or not certified. And the other big piece is make sure your cameras are on. It helps us out a bunch. And then I will show the QR code that you guys can scan. So if you haven't already, open up your phone, make sure you remember your password to log in so you can scan the QR code and get credits, CEUs, right after we get done with the session here. Couple upcoming for the rest of 2023. Lacrosse 101 coming up here at the end of November, and then first part of December we'll go through Laundry 101, which will be finishing up, and then we'll post the 2024 schedule here shortly. Excited to have today's panel. Some great assets to really learn from here. Morgan's joining us from Montana State. Javon is joining us from Mount Sac, and then Robin is going to join us from Franklin Marshall. So hats off to them. Thanks for helping out. Before I get started, Katie or Jalen, did you have anything you want to add before I get started?
Josh, Katie couldn't hop on. She had something to come up, so I'll hop in here. Not a whole lot to add. Josh covered everything. Please make sure for CEU purposes, you put that information in the chat. That really helps Robin and myself out, especially Robin on the back end. And thank you all for showing up today. Right now we have 85 people on here. That's awesome. Attendance has continued to be very consistent. So thank you all for carving time out of your day to be on here. And Josh, I don't know if you just saw in chat, Melly says she can't stay on for the entirety of the call. So I'll quit talking and give Melly a few moments to share anything to address the association if she would like. So Melly, go ahead.
Good day. I'm not quite sure what time zone you're in. I hope you're enjoying some of this warm weather that we're getting here in Chicago where you're at. Just want to give you a couple updates. I'm not going to be able to stay on long. I know I'm very grateful to have all of you on here. This is going to be a phenomenal workshop. I can't think of two other people that we could do it as good a job as those presenting today. Just want to give you a little update from the national office. There's lots of things happening behind the scenes. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but good things are happening. I'm working on a proposal to the NCAA for getting certification recognized. So that's my goal, to have that proposal done probably by the end of the year. So in December, having the board take a look at that and give feedback. So hopefully that's something that's going to be moving forward. I don't want to eat too much more of your time here, but there's things happening functionally in the association that you're going to see some big improvements moving forward. I hope you guys enjoy the meeting here, and go Cats, as I always end.
Awesome.
Hey Josh, I'm actually on for just 1 second. Okay. If I could just pop in and then I have to pop off. So mentorship we usually hit at the end, but then you jump off. If you would like to be a mentor, or if you would like to get a mentor, please email me. You can email my work email or the association mentorship email. Please add that mentorship email to your contacts. I've seen a lot of them getting bounced back thinking it's spam, or people not seeing them because it's a random Gmail account. So if you signed up to be a mentor or be a mentee, please check your emails. I sent out a bunch of those partnerships already. I'm still waiting. I need to send 3 more out, but please check your emails and please keep in contact with your mentors. If you have questions, please reach out.
Thank you, Katie.
Cool.
All right, so we'll get started. We're just going to go through kind of our normal style, a few questions, and we'll work through the panelists kind of in order. And then if you have questions, the big thing I ask is, just because we do have 88 now on the call, please send me a direct message through the chat tool. That will really help me out a bunch. If I need clarification, I'll chat back with you or that kind of stuff. But please, as you come up with questions, or if you've got questions that you want answered and you just want to make sure we get them done, please send them now while they're fresh in your brain. So we'll go ahead and get started. Appreciate everyone jumping on. So first off, as we get through things, how is your budget set up with your individual institutions? And really kind of when we looked at it, developing these questions, like the hard goods side of things and the clothing contract side of things are two different ways to look at budget that everyone can kind of relate to. So we'll start with Robin and go to Morgan and then go to Javon. So Robin, would you go ahead and answer this one for us?
Sure. So we're Division III, so we don't really have a clothing contract. So for us, our budgets are for both the hard goods and the clothing contract, the clothing and apparel that we use for practices and games. So I work with all the coaches to determine what items they're due for each year, and work with our budget manager with that as part of the larger budget. And so we actually have started working, like everybody else, as far out as we can. So right now we're trying to do stuff for next year. I know that, for us, we have a lot of people that kind of come in a little bit later. So some of our things do tend to get ordered a little bit later just because our rosters are not finalized until maybe our April or May, which makes it more challenging to get the goods. But we're always trying to work within the budget and do what we can.
Awesome. Thank you, Robin. Morgan, would you go ahead and answer this one for us?
Yeah, so we have a clothing contract with Under Armour. That includes promo money. Our promo money, it's kind of divided up by team, and teams get their own say of how they use it. Personally, for football, being the sport that spends the most, I save about 10,000 of that for my spring orders for any athletes that we have transferring in or any freshmen. When it comes to all other clothing, we use promo money on the front end and get as much of that spent as we can, and then use cash for the rest of it and budget out that cash side. The cash is discounted, promo we pay full price. And then hard goods, it's just a matter of we use a tracking system for all of our helmets and shoulder pads and hard goods like that. So we're able to see how many helmets are cycling out at their 10 years. I am able to predict maybe 12 helmets from each color are going to be rejected, what I need to replace. And hopefully we are spot on with those numbers.
Awesome. Thanks, Morgan. And Javon, would you chime in on how you handle yours?
Yeah, so at the JUCO level, we just get a lump sum for all sports, and then it's just divided up based on the rosters. Football usually is the largest, but the school that I'm at now is a little bit different from the last school I was at. Our track and field program gets the biggest budget at our school, and our football team is kind of in the middle. We don't have a licensing with anybody. We go through BSN for all of our apparel. And then our hard goods, we have an inventory system with Helmet Tracker, and we track everything for a dollar amount to cycle everything out, shoulder pads and helmets. So it's a lot different on our level. It's kind of similar to the D3 level, but our funding is probably a little bit better, but because we get from the state. So
great. Thanks everybody for chiming in. So our next question, do you have room in your a room budget for your equipment room, or do you have to ask for funds? Things like replacing shelves or getting into that, or even just with staff. If you've got students, things like that, are you budgeted, or is that part of a Greater Athletics budget? And so we'll start with Javon and go backward as Morgan, and then Robin, you'll be last. So Javon, if you could speak to this, that'd be a huge help for us.
So currently at the school that I'm at now, I'm kind of going to give you guys both of my previous school and my current school now. My current school that I'm at, they do not have an equipment room budget at all. Each equipment manager, which is 4 of us, we are trying to put together a spreadsheet and ask for things and plan out as far ahead as we possibly can with all the new facilities we have now compared to the old facilities that they had prior to us getting here. My last school, we did have an equipment room budget. It started at 5,000, went to 8,000, went to 10,000, and then the last year I was there was at 15,000, and that was just for items that I needed outside of laundry products because of COVID. Gloves, spray bottles, disinfectant was all in another budget, which was about $9,000, and then we had a equipment room budget for apparel for student workers, volunteers, ball boys, the chain gang that came out of the equipment room budget, helmet replacement parts and stuff like that was about $15,000. So hopefully in the next year or so, we're able to build that here since there are 4 equipment rooms compared to the 1 at my last school.
Awesome. Thanks, Javon. Morgan, would you chime in on how your room works with the budget?
Yeah, so we have 2 separate equipment rooms here. We share a room budget that covers all of our supplies, student clothing, our laundry supplies, and any smaller purchases that we need to make. So storage bins, anything that kind of falls into that category of day-to-day operations. Anything outside of that, we submit proposals for, whether it be new washers. We're currently going through the process to get Space Saver added into our new equipment room for football. And then we have a separate budget for student managers that we fall upon. And we actually pull that money in from the yard sale that we do. So any of the money that we make out of the yard sale goes into funding our student equipment managers. And that goes to all sports. So we have certain equipment students that work in the field house, certain ones that work in the football side.
Awesome. Thank you, Morgan. And Robin.
So I do have 2 equipment rooms, and we have 2 budgets. Similar to Morgan, we share the supplies part of it for laundry chemicals. We got new machines about 5 years ago, and so that's on a lease. So the budget covers the amount for the lease each year. And then we have some money for, different items. We have money for the laundry chemicals. We too have an equipment sale each year, and so the money that goes in there. So for larger items that I might want, I can utilize some of the equipment sale money, or I can make an proposal to the department for that. Probably about 10 years ago, we got Space Saver shelving put into my office here, and that was part of a larger overhaul of our building. So that was something we had to plan out and have approved. I do have student employees. Up until this year, they've had to be work aided. So that has always been challenging because, it really narrows who we can hire. But they finally did allow it to be an unaided position. And now we've been able to get a few more students. So a lot of my positions are covered with that. I have a part-time assistant who helps with the other facility. And that's part of just the athletics budget in general. So the student piece and, just my assistant is part of the whole athletics staffing budget.
Awesome. Thank you, Robin. All right, let's bump over to the next question here. Robin, we'll come back to you with this one to get started. How involved are you with your coaches and administrators with the budget? How do you work with them to plan and execute? I think this is probably the hardest thing to do with the budget. So I'm looking forward to learning from everybody's aspects and how they handle this. And would even love it for those of you who've been around for a bit, how this has changed over time too, because I think that's another one that a lot of us are hopefully seeking change in some of this. So Robin, go ahead.
All right. I'm going to attempt to share my screen. Did that come through?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. So I'm kind of sharing with you, why can't I see it? Anyway, so I work very closely with the coaches and the administrators. Our model is that we have 4 different administrators who oversee different sports, and I work with each of the administrators and the budget manager. So we have a sheet here, damn it. This is a model of everything that we do. So it starts with, office supplies, and then, specific sport supplies for each team. And then we have a cycle of who's getting new uniforms and warm-ups and bags in each year and allocate money there. It includes each item for like dues, for printing, for home and away contest, officials, entry fees. Like, it's a very detailed thing. I work with the budget manager on this. So then within these lines, we know we need game balls and practice balls, and we estimate what the cost is going to be and how many we need. So the coaches need to stay within this overall figure. So, but sometimes things happen. They change a game ball and we need to get more game balls. So those coaches then need to work with their sports administrators to get approval to go over that amount or to move monies around in other areas. So I've worked very closely with everybody to develop this. This has been like a 2-year project, and we're finally in a good position moving forward. They also have here at the bottom, like if they have something that they like to do for their student athletes, they can ask for certain things that they are allowed to do that are fundraising approved purchases. So some of the teams, utilize this in different ways. Could be for a banquet or for different things that they do, but it gives the coaches the ability to look at what they're doing and be able to enhance the student experience.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Robin. Morgan, would you go ahead and share how you do things?
Yeah, so ours is a little bit different than I think everybody's might be. Our coaches are solely responsible for their budgets. Equipment wise, we follow their direction. They are responsible for tracking all of the spending. It does not always work out that way. Football wise, I am overseeing almost the entire budget for equipment, and my only job, I go up to coach and say, hey, do you have the money, or do you have a way to find the money for this if we're going to go over budget? I did work on the Olympic side, and it is much easier on that side. The coaches are very involved in their budgeting. They are also sitting right next to the administration offices. So I think that communication works a little bit differently. But with our coaching staff, we sit down and we say, okay, this is what we ordered last year. We just finished our booking order for next year. So we sat down and we said, this is what we ordered for last year. We're going to reuse the travel suits because we know that we have this purchase that we want to make for field equipment. And going through and saying, okay, and we had 2 coaching shirts, we're getting 2 more for next year. And just following kind of the plan from last year. And then if we find out we have more money than we expected from the going into the next year, then we are able to use that money as a gift for the athletes or something along those lines.
Perfect. Thank you, Morgan. And Javon, we'll finish up with you.
Here currently at Mount Sac, our coaches manage the budget for their sports. And they let us know what they need, quote wise, we provide it to them. And we send it off to our purchasing department. They get a PO, and then it goes back to the head coach, and we wait for the items to get here. My last school, we had 19 sports. I managed the budget for 17 of those 19 sports. Everything from ordering for coaches gear, all the way down to the socks. It's a lot easier that way for us as equipment managers because we know what our coaches need. We know what our teams need, and we know what their budgets are if we're able to manage the budget. If we go over budget here at the current school that I'm at, it just goes straight to our AD, and our AD usually tries to find the money from either donors or trying to come up with a last-second fundraiser to cover the cost for things. But I'm kind of hands-off. I just basically do all the prepping and waiting for those items to come in, label them, inventory them, and letting our coach know that they're here.
Perfect. Follow-up question for some of you, this might be very applicable, but we talk about, working with coaches. And Robin, you got a great worksheet. How are all of you tracking items that get aged? Let's talk about uniforms specifically. They have a certain amount of life to them. Are you tracking that and having conversations? Or are you just replacing every year? Who's in charge of that? Is that you guys, or is that the coaching staff? Can you guys talk about the age of items and kind of the cycle that you're on to replace them? Javon, we can start with you. You have any?
So currently at the school that I'm at now, the person that was in this position prior to me would wait until they had to replace stuff rather than plan ahead, which from my experience cost you a lot more money. So now having the conversation and meeting with my administrators who are wanting to learn the process of why we order ahead of time and what the savings will be. We're starting to move into that direction to where we are not ordering. If a helmet has a 10-year lifespan, we're ordering at least 10 helmets a year to make sure that we're not ordering in mass amounts and losing them at the same time. Same thing with our jerseys. I've pointed out like, hey, coach, or hey, my AD, these have a date on them when they're no longer available. So let's not wait until the end to order uniforms. Let's start planning ahead. So everything now moving forward, we're planning 2 to 3 years ahead rather than waiting, because it's going to save us a lot more money and it gives us more time to find the money when we want to purchase those items.
Perfect. Morgan, did you have anything to add to that?
Our biggest thing is uniform wise. Our basketball teams are switching to yearly new uniforms, especially with how many transfers we're getting for basketball. This past year, I think we only retained 5 of our basketball players. That was also due to a coaching change. But we've done kind of the math, and with now basketball having the opportunity to have any number, I believe 1 through 99 at this point, they were just going to order full new sets so that we're not ordering fill-ins and trying to piece everything together. And then football wise, we have had the same uniforms, I believe, for almost 4 years now, but we're looking at our contract with Under Armour is ending next year. We don't know what we're doing. So we've had the conversation of nobody's ordering new uniforms or specialty uniforms for the next year and a half, so that we aren't investing in those and then not able to wear them after we have just purchased them. And just keeping in mind that contract length and how long those styles are available for is a big thing for us.
That's awesome. Thanks, Morgan. Robin, would you have anything to add to that?
So our uniforms and our warm-ups are on a 4-year cycle. Our travel bags are on a 2-year cycle. So we just, I have a list of who's due for new uniforms in what year. So about a year ahead of time, we start looking at that and we start building that into our budgets. Fortunately, the college understands the timeline that it takes a while to get custom things and the supply chain issues. So they are allowing us, if, for example, we're buying new football uniforms for next fall, we can actually have it built into this year's budget so that we can start purchasing them now and have them in hand in time for the new year. And that's a big change for us than past years. So that's a big benefit. And so we are, like I said, in the process right now of ordering new football uniforms.
Awesome. Thanks, Robin. A couple questions that came in. So we're going to kind of go off script a little bit. Peter sent in this question. What other departments besides the coaches are you guys working with? You mentioned, are you working with the medical staff at all? If anybody, we'll start with Javon. Are you working with any other departments as far as planning your budget outside of the coaches and your sport administrators?
No, we do not. The medical staff gets their own budget and they get to use it however they see fit. Okay. And that's only other department on campus that is attached. That's not true. We have our dance and cheer. They have their own budget as well too, and they get to spend it however they would like as well too, outside of those sports.
Cool. Morgan, do you have anybody else that you're having a reference with budgets with?
I meet monthly with our athletic athletic director for budgeting, and then our chief finance officer, as well as coaches for how budget is going. And then I also do the purchasing for all of our support staff. So typically I'm working with them on what we've spent for them and what they have left and what their options are on that end.
Perfect. And Robin, do you have any follow-up on that one?
I work with the department, all the coaches and stuff. Sports medicine has their own budget, but there are some things that we purchase, like apparel and stuff, for them. So I do have access to their lines as needed, or if there's things that I can get that they can't. But I do all the purchasing for the department. Our recreation department is part of athletics, so I oversee, that part of the ordering. Up until recently, I also oversaw the fitness and strength facilities, so I was involved with all of that. We finally have a strength coach, and so I don't have that as much, but I do still assist with the purchasing and the maintenance of that area.
Perfect. Thank you. Another great question that came in, and you guys kind of hinted at it or talked that you have it in place, but wanted to dive in a little bit deeper, is the idea of the surplus or garage sales that you guys have that sometimes help the budget out. If you guys can answer, like, who's in charge of that? How often do you do it? Where do you have it? Is the money going back to your department directly as far as budget, or is it goes back to the general athletics fund? And I like this one too. This is something I've always wondered, is with the whole NIL situation. I know this applies differently in different schools and levels, but how do athlete-owned gear, is that getting funneled into these stores and or sales as well? So Robin, we'll start with you and kind of talk about that a little bit.
So we do have equipment sales. It used to be that it was manned and run by our student athlete advisory group, and they kind of stopped doing it. And so then I got approval to do it on my own. So I've been the one that's done it. We do it every fall. If we have enough gear, then we will, and we have time, we do it in the spring. It's a lot of work to get it set up, and we don't have a great location that's secured for us to be able to lay it out for multiple days and have people come and buy gear. So unfortunately, I use some of the visitors' locker room spaces, so it's not always the best layout, but it allows me to kind of find a time for like 2 or 3 weeks where the locker rooms may not be used. So I have time to get it set up, have people come in and buy it, and then tear it down. So we are able to retain the money, and right now for me, I can use it as to enhance the equipment room. If needed, I'm sure that the college could pull that money for other things in the athletic department. It does well, but it's not a huge money maker, but it's enough to offset some of the expenses in the equipment room as needed.
That's awesome. Thanks, Robin. Morgan, would you add? I know you mentioned you have one as well.
Yeah, we do. Last year was our first yard. This past spring was our first yard sale. In a while, I brought the idea because we had an insane amount of stuff that had just been sitting from before my time here. And we have a huge fan base in Bozeman, and it just seemed to be a good idea. We ended up bringing in about $50,000 from our yard sale, just from, I think, 4 years worth of stuff that we sold. We hosted it the same day as our spring ball game. Equipment staff ran the whole thing. We pulled in business office to run credit card machines. We used credit card only. No cash was involved, which was really nice to be able to track everything. NIL wise, our jerseys don't have names on the back. And what we did is we offered all of our athletes the opportunity to purchase their jerseys before we added them to the yard sale. And so if they bypassed, that was them saying it's fine for you to sell this in our heads. And statewide, it's one of those things where when you're funded by the state, you have to make sure that it's okay with them doing a yard sale and selling off state-owned property technically. So our only requirement was it had to be at a non-ticketed event so that it was available to everybody in the public. And then we will likely do one this coming spring, if not the spring after, just so that we can collect a little bit more stuff for it. But yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Morgan. Javon, do you guys have anything, or have you had anything like that in the past?
No, we do not.
Okay.
I've brought it up to both of the schools that the school I was at last year, actually a few years ago, and then I brought it up to the school that we have here. The one thing about our school, the school that I'm at now, we host the Mount Sac relays, so we get thousands and thousands of shirts, extra T-shirts that are actually sitting in a building from, I believe, like 1992 that they're like hesitant to get rid of. I don't know why, but I've told them, hey, all this vintage stuff is coming back. It might be a good idea for you guys to make some money if you guys did that, but they don't want to do it. So it just sits there.
Thanks for the input, guys. Appreciate it.
Can I just follow up by
Yeah,
saying
go ahead.
that,
Yeah.
you know, we had a bunch of stuff too, and they, you know, we had probably maybe 4 to 8 years worth of gear, depending on what sport it was. So there was a lot of stuff. And so we can't afford to keep holding on to all this stuff. So at the end of this year, we are sending a bunch of sports to Uncommon Sports Group to get rid of it for us. Fortunately, we're a private school, so we don't have to worry about the state money and stuff. But you know, at some point you just can't hold on to the gear anymore. And so fortunately the administration was supportive of that, because I can't imagine holding on to that many t-shirts for that long.
It's a problem. We have a rodent problem, and I'm like, you could be making money off of this stuff. You got to get this stuff out of here. But like you said, they just keep holding on to it. I'm just like, we can utilize that space for something else, and they just choose not to. So we'll see here in the next year or so if they do it.
Appreciate that, Robin. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, and just real quick, anytime and really anything, guys, we're talking old T-shirts, whatever, we can really find a home for. So we proved it this weekend a lot. So kind of going to the next question, we'll jump right in. This is the biggest one, a real big one, especially for those new to budgets or maybe a new process in your budgets. Just advice for maximizing your budget, whether that is using, we've run across people that use a percentage to kind of overestimate what they need, or the old adage of hiding what is really there so your coaches really don't know. All kinds of things as far as maximizing your budget. I think Javon brought up a good one earlier about having a rotation where you have a plan instead of being reactive. I think that costs all the schools a lot of money. So Javon, we'll start with you and go to Morgan and then Robin after that. What is your best advice for maximizing your budget?
I think you said it best, is you have to hide the cost. You have to hide the cost, number one. Number two, we know when to buy. We know it's best to buy out of season rather than in season, because they just jack the price up. But also it's planning ahead. If you plan ahead, you're always going to be okay, because for us, I've explained it to our coaches, hey, buy the girdles that you need, buy the 160, and do that for 3 or 4 years. At the 4th year, you're not going to need to buy girdles. These guys are going to want to wear their own girdle. And then you take that $6,000 or $7,000 and go buy something else. Buy that new end zone camera, those new headsets that you've always wanted that the school's not going to buy you. So just continue to plan ahead, and just have a good reputation with your vendors. Always ask them, hey, are they going to change the price? Can you anticipate what deals are coming? All those questions. No question is a dumb question when it comes to your vendors and what we do. So always ask what they can do, ask how they can help. Ask the vendors, hey, do you have a school that didn't pay for a bill and you still have their product? Can I get that discounted instead of you eating the cost or losing out on that sale? Can we buy it from you? Just ask those questions so you can save some money, because pinch the penny. The more that we save the school, this shows how valuable we are.
I think there's an adage in that too, is keeping track of that, especially you guys have been in the industry for a while. We talk about yearly evaluations for our jobs and things. That's a great one to, hey, I was able to save this much money on this project, or by redoing the budget here, we're able to save this much. It's a big one for everybody involved. So Morgan, would you go ahead and give your best advice to this one?
Again, with the planning ahead, I think my biggest thing is I know what my athletes need. I know that my guys wear gold t-shirts in the weight room and blue t-shirts on the field for practice. So what we do is, everybody, their first year here, they get a package of 2 gold shirts, 2 blue shirts, and 4 blue shorts, all with their number on them. They get that package and they are expected to keep track of that. After that first initial year, it turns into 1 gold shirt, 1 blue shirt, and 2 pairs of shorts. So they have that initial set that we just end up adding on to every, we add on to it in January and then we add on to it again in August. But if you do that initial package, you're lowering how much you have to spend moving forward, because my returners, I only have to buy 1 shirt in each color for, instead of buying them multiple shirts in each color. So finding ways in the budget to do that, and then just tracking what you have in your room. We do a really good job of tracking all of our compression gear. I know that 2 people before me bought an insane amount of compression leggings. I have not had to buy compression leggings for 2 years now. And if I wouldn't have kept track of that, I would have just kept buying and kept building on that stock, and we would have an excess. So just keeping track of where numbers are in your room.
All right. And Robin?
So again, planning ahead is always the big one. And, some of the sports I have more difficulty finding stuff for, like, buying stuff for tennis sometimes can be challenging just because of the time of year you're buying it. You're kind of in their off season. So definitely taking advantage of being able to buy it ahead of time when the stock first comes out has been a big thing. The other thing is, when you're budgeting for things, yes, we might be able to get it at a discount, but putting on the budget sheet what it is for retail, because then the administrators that are looking at it like, oh yeah, that's what it costs. Whereas we might be able to then take some of that extra money and move it someplace else where we didn't allot enough money, or, get something, an accessory or something like that that the players could really utilize.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Bumping over here. I know, Robin, you kind of shared a little bit. Do you still want to share more of your budgets at all, or?
I think that one was pretty
Okay.
exhaustive.
And Morgan and Javon, do you guys have a budget you'd like to share with everybody, or?
We are
I don't-
currently in the process of developing budgeting sheets.
Okay.
But we use third party to purchase all of our Under Armour gear, and we mainly go off of that for all of our budgeting.
Perfect. And Javon?
I currently don't have one. I'm working with one of our other equipment managers that oversees the aquatics area, since we are basically the 2 heads in our area. So all of us, 3 out of the 4 equipment managers here now have only been here for a year. So we're sifting through what has been done here. We've replaced people that were here for 30 years. So we're still finding stuff and still trying to find our way and learn how everything has been set up. And again, with the new buildings, they're still figuring out what they need and how they want our input. So we're just waiting for them to ask so we can basically provide.
Perfect.
I guess one other thing I should add, so that sheet that I did, we have that for each sport, and the budget manager and I share that. So if I go in and I purchase something, I can go in and make notes that the cost of something went up and that we need to allocate more money for something next year. Or I can, as the coaches tell me that, they might have a, larger roster and stuff, I can make notes of those things too, so that like we're working on our budgets for next year now. So when the budget manager and I sit down, we can tweak some of those budgets for next year, knowing what's coming our way.
Perfect. Thank you. Another question for everybody here. What is your advice on how to ask for things? And I know this is difficult because I'm sure you get asked for things from coaches, and you probably have to filter that a little bit. But what is your best advice for the asking for things? More budget. Do you guys are having to do written proposals for things? What is the process? And then what is your advice on that? So Javon, we'll start with you.
So from my experience at my new school, it's more of providing just 3 quotes. and giving them the background of, hey, we don't have this, 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 and this. These are the costs for these items. Let me know if we can afford them, because there is no equipment room budget at all. And it's, hey, if there's laundry things like rolling rack, Z carts, laundry loops, it's all about planning. I just plan out, hey, if we buy this many now, it's going to cost us more. It's better for us to buy a major quantity of this and save the money and allocate it to all four rather than buy for each individual equipment room. So the process here is get the quotes. That I found successful is get the quotes, give them the reason, and then send it to them, and then they'll determine whether they want to do it or not. And then it gets back to our coaches. I explain it to our coaches of why we need it, and then our coaches go and they say, well, this will be helpful because it'll cut down the time for Jay to do his job. And then once our coaches step in and they understand and I explain it to them, that's when the administration is like, okay, it's going to benefit the team. It's going to benefit the players, and it makes your job easier. You can get a lot more done. So it's been really great. We brought up the idea of providing a budget. So we're looking at that for next year as well too.
Perfect. And Morgan, would you provide any feedback on this one?
For me, I have developed a really close relationship with our business office and our budget manager. And that has been key in me being able to get much done with them. And I spent a full day with our finance office, just sitting and trying to understand, okay, how does this proposal work? What is this process like, so that I know I'm providing all of the information that they need on that paperwork to make it go smoothly. And we're not coming back because we have a committee that approves certain purchases over, I think, $10,000. We have to get approved by a committee. And so making sure that that committee has all of the information that they're going to need so that that process goes as fast as it can. And then having that relationship with our business office of, hey, we are looking at doing this. Can we start this paperwork? And then starting to work on those 3 quotes, or understanding that process, because not always do you have to go with the lowest bid. Sometimes there's that bid that's right in the middle, and we have a process that allows me to grade what bids come in. And make a decision of, no, this lowest bid is not the best quality, but this bid that's sitting in the middle is better quality and is going to last us longer. And it gives me more of an opportunity to make that decision.
That's awesome. That's great. Robin, do you have any feedback on this one?
Well, I've been here at the college for 20 years, so I've seen a lot of different things. Currently, the big thing is anything that's a larger item, we need to get quotes for, but they don't tell us who they are, so I can kind of pick who they are. Most of our regular season stuff, it goes through BSN. So, the only thing I'm dealing with is things that BSN might not be able to get, or things, larger items. Like probably the biggest one more recently was getting new washers and dryers, and I had to get quotes from those. But I still had the ability to have input into it, because some of them, might be a good cost, but then there was no one here to maintain them. So I had a number of years ago, I had a person on campus who thought he knew better about the washers and dryers than I did. And consequently, he went with this company that was out of 2 states away. And so every time the washer broke down, it would take them 3 days to get here to fix it. Well, that was not, ideal. So having that kind of, story to share with people can kind of say, okay, I can understand why this is a problem. And, in that case, the person who was signing off of on, I had them come down and walk through the equipment room and say, okay, here's what happens when we don't have a washer. And they're like, whoa. So, if some of those things just involving those decision makers, having them come and see a practice or see what the people are actually dealing with, has been very helpful.
That is amazing advice. I think we've heard that a few different times throughout these, is just getting other people involved in what you guys do day to day to understand the request, or understand the importance of not just going with the cheapest option is a great piece of advice in this situation. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. Kind of wrapping everything up a little bit. But how does your current school operate, and how have things changed for you over the years with different organizations? We've touched this a little bit, but in your case, Robin, for 20 years, obviously things have changed. What are the biggest changes? We'll start with you, Robin. We'll go to Morgan and come back to Javon.
Well, I think one of the biggest challenges right now is we've had 6 different VPs of finance in the past 10 years. So, and they all come in with their way of doing things. So, they want to do things differently. The current model that I showed was with the VP that we worked with last year. We now have a new one, but I think we have so much information and stuff in there and a lot of detail that I think moving forward with the new person, they can see what it is we're doing, and we'll still probably have to make some changes and adjustments. But we have a good format in place. I think, the athletes all seem to want more things. So, and they definitely want things that are brand name as opposed to off brand. So those are some of the big changes I've seen in my time.
Awesome. Morgan, would you add your advice?
Yeah, I have only been at Montana State. My first year here, there really was no budget for anybody. That was after my first year. We hired a associate athletic director for budgeting. And then my second year, I moved over to football, and somebody else had done all of the purchasing. So I wasn't really truly involved in the budget. This is my first year. I'd say I'm fully overseeing everything. And it has just been a process between me taking over and then having our assistant athletic director for budget. Her and I working together, trying to develop, okay, what is needed each year, or how can we track this? How can her and I communicate on a level that she's understanding why I'm making the purchases that I'm making?
Awesome. Thanks, Morgan. I know Javon had to step away, but we're kind of near the end here. I do want to, while you guys are scanning the QR code, had a couple questions come in. One of them, let me read here. Let's see. Real quick with Morgan and Robin, how do you combat the coach? Maybe you don't have to deal with it, but hopefully you can provide some advice here. How do you combat the coach or the person coming to you all the time saying, well, I don't have room in my budget now, but I'll figure it out, or I'll just go over and deal with it later type of conversation. Maybe you're not having that conversation, but had a question come in and asking kind of how you deal with those types of people. So I don't know, Robin, if you have any advice there.
Well, with this new way of budgeting and stuff, the coaches actually have all this stuff. So they have to identify, along with their sports administrator, how it's going to happen, because they can't do that anymore. That's what used to happen. And then we would be way over budget. And so now if they say they want to do something, before I even enter the purchase order, I say, you have to tell me what account it is. And if it's outside of the parameters that I've been approved for, you have to get your administrator's approval. And one of the things that's been very helpful here is that they cannot use their credit card for purchasing items. It's because a lot of people would go and just buy things at Dick's or wherever else. So they're not permitted to do that. On the occasion that we need them to do that, they have to get their administrator's approval ahead of time to do that. Otherwise, then all that money comes out of their fundraising money, and then they don't have the ability to do what they want to do with it.
Great. Morgan, do you have any feedback on that one at all?
For the most part, I think I said earlier, our coaches are solely responsible for their budgets, which makes it very easy equipment wise. Football, I would say I have a little bit more say in the budget, but our Olympic sports, they really stick to the coaches are responsible for their budget. And if their coach says, hey, come make this purchase out of this account, we make that purchase. And we don't have to do the arguing or anything like that. When it comes to football and our side of things, it's more often I'm going to our head coach and saying, hey, this situation came up. I need to make this purchase. Can we make this work? Just like this past year, we had way more helmets rejected than we had planned on. We are at high elevation. And so for us right now, it makes the most sense to be purchasing true fit helmets that don't have air in them. So I went to our head coach and I said, hey, this is what makes the most sense. And he said, yep, we'll pull it from this account. You make that purchase. And that's just the way him and I have found best to communicate between him and I.
Perfect. And Javon, I don't know if you heard the question, but really kind of how you communicate with coaches and other staff about their willingness to go over budget.
I've tried it here a number of times. Again, I'm only going into my second year here at this school. Our track and cross country coaches, they do their thing, their own thing, and they get a lot of backing from Nike because we host the Mount Sac relays. So they have their own connection. Our football coach has really opened up and has taken a lot of the advice that I have given him based off of him communicating with my last head coach and seeing how much stuff they have compared to what we currently have here, and seeing how many they have, like 4 or 5 uniforms. And so he's just like, hey, who did that? He's like, well, we went through the equipment manager. So now he's just like, hey, can you help us? How can you get our budget increased? And I told him, I was like, the biggest thing is safety. We have to stress safety. If you stress safety, you're going to be able to get more of the things that you need, and it's not going to eat up the small amount of money that you have. So our football coach is really big on now, hey, come to me and let me know what any ideas that you have. Our cross country coach, I just say, hey, let me know if you need a quote for anything. So it's very different, but I'm always available whenever they do need me. And I'm willing to help any of the other equipment managers that we have on staff try to bridge that gap with their coaches as well too.
I think the best piece of advice, just kind of summarizing a lot of the conversation, a lot of the questions, is having a well-established policy procedure of how things are going. That makes your conversations a lot easier to have, and allows you to say no if you need to say no, especially if it's outside. And I think all of us that have been in this role or athletics in the past, especially working with coaches in the ever-changing landscape, is get it on paper, get it in writing, because you gotta have that folder to make sure you've got yourself backed up when things aren't going the way they need to. So really want to take time, thank the 3 of you for joining the panel. You guys were awesome, had a lot of good insight. Big hats off. I think we had up to 92 at one point in time participants, had a lot of great questions, more questions we've ever had before. So a lot of great questions come through. I tried to get through all of them. Just really appreciate you guys and look forward to connecting with you here in a few weeks on another great panel. And yeah, have a great week. See y'all.